And we are live. Hi, everyone. Welcome back from the break. We are now going to be moving on to our fifth speaker, who is Gail, a writer, reader, and a reviewer from Cape Town, South Africa. In her presentation today, she will be talking about her blog, Cat Therapy, and how it has helped her through cancer. We are so honored to have you here with us today. Feel free to begin your presentation whenever you're ready.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. I'm Gail, and I'd like to talk you through my journey with cancer and how I managed to cope with it. And I hope it'll be of some use to you if you're going through the same thing. So I'm starting my presentation by calling it Light at the End of the Tunnel. And I was diagnosed in August 2019 with breast cancer. And I embraced everything I could. So the big guns of medicine, family and friends, blogging, nutrition, therapy, hypnotherapy, homeopathy, art therapy, music, Reiki, energy healing, vision boards. And my cat Archie came on board and he gave me his own special therapy. So I'd like to first talk about the diagnosis trauma, and my heart goes out to you if you have been recently or even not so recently diagnosed with cancer. It's a devastating diagnosis. I don't think you can be prepared for it. My questions were not why me. My questions were, will I survive this? And the second thing that came into my mind was, I want to live. So it was a 13-month journey. I had no idea it was going to be that long. But I do want to say up front that I intend to live to be 100 years old. And I imagine that my death will be an overdose of chocolate cake after my 100th birthday. So, and that little vision came into my mind straight away. And I've always kept that chocolate cake in my periphery. So one step at a time, my journey began. I went through all the scans, all the appointments, all the anxiety, and landed up in the chemo room where a needle was wedged into my hand and the first red devil was pumped into me. The message I got from the chemo room and all my fellow travelers was water, drink lots of water. And my neighbor next to me said, eat while you can. Trust me on this one. So strike two, I was prepared for the second chemo. I'd had an easy time. The first one, a little bit of nausea, but I didn't expect any problems. Well, I was wrong. So that's why it's so important for this to be a one step at a time journey, because it's not a straight road. The second time, my veins went into total rebellion. I became the center stage drama. A retired matron had to come to the rescue. And finally, after a lot of trouble, I was hooked up. So that happened as it should. And then I decided to approach my GP, who's also a homeopath, and ask her to give me a remedy that would go along with the chemo, that would complement the chemo, which she did. And in homeopathy, there isn't one size fits all. It's definitely tailored to you and your body's needs. I also consulted someone to do a vision board because I knew I needed all the help I could get on this journey. And I went to someone who created a vision board for me. And you may want to know what a vision board is. Well, the way I see it, it's something to encourage you to create your own future visually, to look at what you really want and how to make it happen. Then the next little glitch, not such a little glitch on the journey, was an ileum revolt. In other words, a paralysis of the bowel. A very rare occurrence. Trust me, if it's rare, I'm going to be the one. I spent 3 days in hospital and it was pretty scary, but they managed to sort it out. And when I got back home, I decided, with debilitating nausea, because now I couldn't take the nausea drug, I decided to finally embrace cannabis oil. I had been resisting it. It was a game changer. My nausea was totally under control after that. And the thing I ate, which really brought my taste buds back to life, was pineapple. So if it helps you, anybody, the cannabis oil, please do use it under medical supervision if you do decide to go that route. Then along the way, along this journey of 13 months, I learned many things. One of them was that I really needed to love myself. Like many of us, I was brought up to love everybody else, but to put myself last. Well, I've turned it on its head now, and I've realized that it's really important to love yourself. And how did I go about doing this? Well, I embraced meditation, sound healing. I've always loved music. If we've got a mind, body, spirit connection, then it's obvious that good music, whatever music you love, is going to help you. And then I asked myself Deepak Chopra's questions, which I had been aware of for many, many years. And they are, who am I? Why am I here? What do I really want? And I asked myself that often while I was going through this journey. Then I am a patient person by nature, but I needed a huge amount of patience for this journey, because when I was going through the second round of 12 weeks of chemo, I really needed to stay in the moment and take it step by step and remember all the things I needed to be grateful for. December was coming up, and I thought of all the traditions that I love about December. I love December. And I thought of Advent's wreath, baking biscuits, making a Christmas cake, filling stockings. And this Christmas, I did it with a lot more mindfulness. I was very aware of how important they were, and that our rituals keep us going. There are things we should keep and follow through with. And then on Christmas Day and on New Year's Day, I had chemo, lucky me. But I was really shocked when my very stern young nurse wagged her finger at me and said, "You're dehydrated." I had really tried to drink water. I obviously hadn't succeeded enough. And she said, 2 liters of water every day, not negotiable. So I complied. Then New Year's Eve was peeping, and in that year, 2020, I decided not to make New Year's resolutions. I decided to think of the things I'd like to leave behind. And I did. All the baggage that we carry, all the resentments, all the silly things we take to heart, I decided to just simply leave them behind. On New Year's Eve, my cat Archie, who's been, as you'll see, all the cat drawings by a friend of mine, Liz, he began to cry, really cry, because I wasn't in the right place. And I realized even this little macho hunter was vulnerable, and it highlighted my own vulnerability. We're all vulnerable. And I didn't know that then, but I had a big disappointment ahead. My next scan was not going to be what I'd hoped for. Nevertheless, I did get to the end of that chemo, and I got to ring the bell. I didn't think I'd be excited to do it, but I really was. When my doctor came to say no more chemo, I knew that I'd ended one phase. I wasn't over the journey, but I had ended a phase. And phase 2 was the operation. I had to come under the knife, and the surgeon I found, I'll call him Dr. AA, he was the one. I was very, very sure of that. And he told me that he was going to do a lumpectomy and take out some lymph glands, and I felt totally good in his hands. I woke up from the operation dreaming of my cat and dog, and they were racing through the air, and a nurse's voice drifted into my dream and said, "Would you like to see it?" My immediate response was no, I wouldn't. I'm not looking back. I didn't want to see the lump that had been removed. For me, it was gone. Okay, so once again, I had a lot of time to recover from this in hospital and in home. And I thought of a saying I'd often said to friends, stop and smell the roses. And I said that to myself. And that includes letting go of too much planning, savoring precious moments, connecting with your loved ones, reaching out to your creator. there's a little stone church in Simonstown that I used to go to as a child at Christmas. And suddenly that year, I wanted to revisit that little church, and I did. So, okay, so things were smooth, or so I thought, until, as I said, it wasn't a straight journey. I developed a seroma in my breast. What is a seroma? A seroma, it's like a huge watermelon that just pops up where they've removed something. So I wasn't happy. In fact, I was very anxious and very nervous about all that set in. But my surgeon, when I arrived to see him with the seroma and then promptly burst into tears in his office, he said, "We're winning. Don't drop the ball now. We're actually winning." So, and then he reminded me as well that I would get there. And actually, I reminded myself that we choose what to think. And the mind and the spirit are not the same thing. It's not a good idea to let your mind run your life. You should rather run it from the heart and your spirit, because the mind is like a monkey. It can chatter away and cause you such unnecessary stress. All right, so then in the middle of my cancer journey, we hit Corona. So here I was with a double-edged sword, chemo and Corona, which is what I blogged about quite a lot. Before the Corona had really even hit us, my doctor had said no supermarkets, no hugging. Little did I know how prophetic she was going to be. Many friends in the beginning of the coronavirus said things like, "It's only the old and fragile who really need to worry." Well, guess what? I suddenly was one of the fragile ones, something I'd never expected to be in my life. And then my next phase after the surgery, and because I'd had this glitch of the seroma, I couldn't go straight onto radiation. I had to go onto oral chemo tablets called Xeloda, and for a long time, for 6 months on and off. Again, how do I get through this? Don't overthink. Bring it into your life. It's counterproductive to mull and stress and worry. And I watched my cat, and I thought the way he embraces life with everything he's got, I need to have the same approach. I needed to take the Xeloda. It was just a routine for 6 months that I had to do. Then, during this Corona chemo journey, we were all hunkering down, but it was important to feel connected to the world out there. And I needed to have that connection with my family and friends who really, really were wonderful during my journey and who got me through it. And I thought this pandemic it is changing our lives. But I think we all have to look for new meaning. And once again, we really, really have to live in the moment. And behind these masks, I found that although we're all wearing masks, people are actually less fake and more sincere these days. And we have got the good side. There are lots of bad sides, but I think people share more of what they do have. And I see that as a good thing. I also know that we've all gone through incredible grief and we're mourning, and there's no taking away from that either. One of the next therapies that I did try was art therapy. I did say I tried everything. And for my birthday, somebody had given me an art therapy session. So I took myself along to it. And I can't draw a stick figure, but I managed to draw something intuitive with the art therapist's help. And at the end of the session, she said, "You know, what you've drawn is music and dance, which is what I love." And she said something else. She said, "I can see from what you've drawn that cancer is only a very small part of who you are." And that's a message I'd like to share with people. You're not defined by your cancer. Cancer is a small part of who you are. You're so much more than that. And again, to think of the things we need to look at, like the small luxuries of life, which we take for granted. A square of chocolate, the autumn sun, fresh linen, a fluffy towel. They're all really wonderful things, but we live such a fast life that we don't often look at those. And I needed to stop and look at those. Also, the power of the internet, how amazing that we can use the internet to connect to people. I've even had hypnotherapy over the internet. So these are things that I did focus on. But of course, I sound a bit like Pollyanna. Maybe some of you are too young to know who Pollyanna is, but she's the quintessential good girl. But I did have some uninvited guests, an uninvited guest, especially in the middle of the night to midnight, 2 in the morning. And one particular night, I rolled over and felt a new lump in my breast. Anxiety and fear took over completely. And I thought, it's not possible. It couldn't be back. I wouldn't be so unlucky. And my first reaction was to ignore it and try and go to sleep. Of course, I couldn't. And I did sort it out. I resolved not to ask my doctor, but of course I did. And she found that it was actually nothing. It was a little bit of scar tissue. So the glitch in the road was soon over. But when I decided I needed help with this journey, I consulted a very well-known therapist in Hout Bay who specializes in hypnotherapy. And I call him Dr. JR. And he really helped me with my journey. One of the things he did was, under hypnosis, he often took me to places I didn't know I was going to go to. And one of them was dancing. I love dancing. I did dance for a very long time. And under trance, I felt myself back on the stage dancing to Dvorak's New World Symphony. I felt the rhythm coming up in my body, the drama of the music. And after weeks and weeks of rehearsals, we, the dancers in this group, we become the dance. And I felt all that again under hypnosis. And what that taught me was that I need to dance again, even at my age. The next thing I needed to look at was food. What was I eating? What had I been eating? Was my Western diet enough? And I came to the conclusion that it wasn't. There were lots of gaps. And I needed to be much more plant-based. I did go vegetarian for a while and then later added fish back so that I was pescatarian, but definitely plant-based was the answer. And something else that happened, during our lockdown times, I felt closer to nature and closer to animals. Because we were all at home so much, I think animals allowed us into their worlds and we saw sides of them we hadn't known before, which I found amazing. So of course, the result is that I now have 2 really eccentric pets who think they're human, but that's okay. Dreams, something else that came to mind. We often ignore our dreams. I don't think we should. I've had some really weird dreams, but I've had some beautiful ones as well. And as I was going along this journey, I dreamt one night of a round ball of shining yellow stars that I was holding in my arms. And as I walked, I absorbed them. And I keep thinking that that had to be a good omen. So there's no 100% guarantee that cancer will not resurface. This is something I've never wanted to write about. My cancer's over, but I don't have 100% guarantee that it will not resurface. But also, no one can guarantee me that it will. So my attitude is, I've survived it. My path care nurse had actually survived it. And I think I did mention that I'm going to die of an overdose of chocolate cake after my 100th birthday. So I'm still going with that one. Life doesn't come with guarantees. You can't guarantee anything, but there's a good and a bad side to that. And I'm looking on the good side. When I got to the radiation part of this 13-month-long journey, I was getting a bit desperate to hear some really good news. And I said to the young radiation oncologist, I really wish somebody could just tell me that I'm cancer-free. So for a moment, she dropped her mask, looked me in the eyes and said, you are cancer-free. Radiation is an insurance policy. It was the most incredible thing anybody's ever said to me. I floated out of her office on a cloud. I still had to go through all the radiation, but she said, we're doing the radiation as an insurance policy. You are free of cancer. Yes, there's no guarantee, but right now you are free. So I thought about many things I don't often look back, but I did think about some successes I've had in my life when I had my first novel published. And I was so busy wanting other things to happen that I actually didn't take notice of being shortlisted for an award. And that's something I remind people, enjoy what's happening now. Focus on the good that's coming into your life now, instead of thinking what's not happening, because we so often do that, and it's really so silly. I've decided to feel all my feelings. I seek to be happy. I dream. If I feel angry or sad, I allow that feeling to come up, not as I did in the past, which was to just ignore them. My hair's grown back. I did lose all my hair, every single hair on my body, and it sprung back with a vengeance. And so for a while I had a short silver pixie style, and I was quite happy with that, but my hair's decided it's not ready to be silver, and it's gone back to its original color. So yeah, to go to the last stage of my journey, the radiation. As I said, this is not a straight road. I went for my first appointment for them to measure me up, and the radiographer said, "You're going to have to safeguard your heart." Oh my goodness. The radiation was going to be targeted on my left breast. That's close to your heart, and I needed to breathe to keep my heart out of the way. So can you imagine how scary that is? What if you don't last the breath? Then your heart's going to be in the way of the rays. So it was a pretty scary experience, and I practiced and practiced. And when I went along to the next session, I had a young male radiographer, and I held my breath so long waiting for the signal to breathe out, which didn't come. I couldn't hear it. And when I did breathe out, he said, "You have excellent lungs." Well, I couldn't stop laughing. I managed to get to the car, and then I just laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed. Probably a little bit hysterically, but it was a really funny moment. So there is BC and AC, before cancer and after cancer. There's also before Corona and after Corona. It's been a 2-year journey. It's 2 years ago, and my doctor did say to me, this is not going to be a walk in the park. It wasn't. But here I am. I'm a cancer warrior. I'm a lover of life. I'm a girl with a goal, seeker of truth, believer in love. My future has begun. And I think for all of us, life is about to change. We need to find a new way. Things always seem impossible until you actually do them. And then you find that suddenly you've done them. So I want to end off my journey by really offering my support to all of you out there. If you have received this diagnosis, I hope my story can help you in some way and give you some courage. As I said, my journey was 13 months long. I have blogged about it. My blog's called Cat Therapy. I forgot to put the link on, but if you look for it, you'll find it under Cat Therapy. And my final message to you is this really teamwork. I included the photographs from some of my medical team, but not from all of them. But what I'd like to say to you is it's really important to stay in the driver's seat. Don't become a passenger. You are not your cancer, and you are not a passenger. Stay in the driver's seat, make decisions with your team. It's really important. Find out about alternative services. There are a lot of other services. Yes, embrace the Western big guns of medicine if you want to. I did, but I also found alternative services. Seek out cancer support groups. That can be very, very useful on the internet, through different ways. I've mentored a few young people who followed my blog, and I've held their hands along the journey, even over the internet. Accept help. It's very important to be open to accepting help from friends and family. I had friends and family who really saw me through this whole journey. I'm not going to mention names in case I forget somebody, but they know who they are, and I'm very, very grateful for all the help. I had friends who sat with me during every single chemo session. I was never alone. And that's really an amazing gift to give somebody. So you are not alone, and there is light at the end of the tunnel. And so I really want you to focus on that light at the end of the tunnel, and never, ever give up hope. One step at a time along the journey. Thank you for listening to me.
That was amazing. Thank you so much. I'm sure everyone who's watching this learned something, if not more than just one thing. Honestly, that was so inspirational. I have two questions that I would like to ask. The first one being, you know how you mentioned that you should accept help and you should reach out whenever you need help. What would you say to those who are actually afraid to do so, who are scared to ask someone?
I think one of our biggest challenges in life, especially in a cancer journey, is fear. Of course, I was very afraid many times. I had moments when I didn't think I was going to finish the journey. But I think that fear is the first thing to try and get a handle on. Living in the moment helps, one step at a time, and reach out to people. People often do want to help. Allow them to. Allow them to reach out to you and reach out to others too. I made friends in the chemo room. The guy next to me, Dave, he talked me through the first chemo, and I listened to his advice, and it was invaluable. So don't shut yourself off. Allow people in.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I feel like reaching out for help also creates a support system, which is
Yes,
it's really important to have that when you go through something difficult. It helps the mental side of things.
absolutely.
Yeah, and then keeping the good, positive mental side really helps with the physical. They connect somehow, for me at least.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then my next question was more on the side of your blog. Do you think that there should be more awareness on how writing and communicating your feelings can be used as a form of healing and treatment?
Absolutely. Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt. Long ago, when I was growing up, I had a diary, and I used to write in my diary, especially when I was really upset about things. I'd write in my diary. And journaling or blogging serves the same purpose. I began this blog. I had blogged before, but I really began blogging seriously when I started this journey. And I tried to blog once a week, and it really got me to get in touch with my feelings, to see what I was really feeling, and just to express it all. And I did share it, and then I also shared it on, I was picked up by a radio presenter too, who'd read my blog, because sharing it it really does halve the burden. Yeah. So write it down, and you don't have to show it to anyone. You don't have to check your grammar. You just write down what's coming up for you. First thing in the morning is what I do. No.
And definitely not only does it help the person themselves, but sometimes if you publish it, it can definitely help someone else who
Yes,
doesn't realize that they have someone who's going through the same thing.
that's
So
right.
it gives that sort of like, even though it's through a screen, but it gives another level of support and another level of comfort to that
Yes,
person.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
That's all the questions I have. If anyone watching has any more questions, please pop them in the chat. I will forward them over to Gail, and I will send the response back. Thank you, Penny, by the way, for your comment. Um, so I really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for such an amazing presentation. It was packed with lessons that were all so valuable. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so
Really
much.
lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker will begin in around 25 minutes. So I will end this live stream and I will start up another one and see